Communist Party of Australia. And I want to acknowledge first that we're meeting on Aboriginal lands tonight and pay our respects to elders past and present. I'd also like to welcome our speakers to this roundtable discussion on carbon tax. Alex Bainbridge from the Socialist Alliance, Scott Ludlam from a Senator for the Greens of Western Australia, Tony Mullen, who's the Secretary of the State School Teachers Union in WA, and Piers Verstegen, who's the Director of the Conservation Council of Western Australia. So we've got an excellent panel of speakers tonight, and I think we'll keep it very informal. I'll start off with, I'll get the speakers to just give a little bit of their position on a carbon tax, and then we'll open it up for questions from the floor, and we'll just keep it going. And if we have to, I can throw a question in to get things going again. So I guess we'll start off here with Alex, if you'd like to speak first on your position.
All right. Well, Vinny said we've got 2 to 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and cover 4 points just as a very basic summary to start off the discussion. And the point that I'd make is, number one, the Clean Energy Future package, which the Gillard government has announced and is promoting, is basically, despite improvements from the old CPRS, it is basically a suicide note for the planet. If that policy gets implemented in full, it's not going to solve our climate crisis. And to me, I think the clearest indication of this is the updated Treasury modelling, which has only just been released, I think a week or so ago, is predicting that there's going to be a 45% increase in coal production in Australia by 2020 and a 109% increase in coal production by 2050. And for gas, 100% increase by 2020 and then 155% increase by 100% by 2020, 155% by 2050. So here we've got major expansion in fossil fuels, and even if you have the idea of, it's going to be slow to get started, but we're starting the ball rolling. In 40 years' time, if you can't even talk about a reduction, let alone a phase in like elimination, but if you can't even talk about a reduction in coal and gas production, then that is a suicide note for the planet. And I guess to me, I think the best analogy to describe the situation in, Tony Abbott's there trying to foist on us, here's a bottle of poison, 100 times a lethal dose. And Gillard saying, don't take Tony Abbott's poison. My poison's only 99%, only 99 times a lethal dose. So it's really two options that are both bad. So second point I want to make, some people who say, whatever their opinion, positive or negative, we have to support this carbon package by the Gillard government, because if we don't support Gillard's carbon package, that is the offer which is on the table. If that offer doesn't get through, the Gillard government will collapse, and I mean that's not it's not unreasonable for people to say that. The Gillard government's going to collapse, and then we'll go to Abbott, and we'll have minimum 10 years of climate denial in Canberra. I basically think this is a false argument. I think there's several arguments against it. I think the first thing is, regardless of, the climate movement has got to campaign for what it wants. You can't campaign for something that you don't want, and then once you've got it, where do you go after that? So the first point I say is, the climate movement has to campaign for what it wants. Secondly, whether it's Labor or Liberal in power, either of those governments have got to face the pressure of a popular movement if they're going to act. If you accept my argument from before, we've got two versions of poison in front of us. Neither of them is going to, of their own volition, move us in a direction that's going to solve the climate crisis. So either of them needs to face the pressure. It is very important that progressive people remember that it is very possible to force concessions off Conservative governments. Now, I think the best example is the withdrawal of troops from Vietnam, which was often credited to Whitlam, but actually began under the former Conservative Prime Minister, I forget who. But even if you think of
Gordon or McMahon?
Yeah, I forget which one it was. I think it was Gordon, wasn't it? Whatever. But even in the later years of the Howard government, you could still see in the example of refugees, there were a number of cases where, in response to popular pressure, Howard had to sort of wind back to some extent. And then the third answer I would put to that argument, we've got to support this Gillard's carbon tax, or else we get Abbott. Number one, that puts zero pressure on Gillard. Like that puts zero pressure on Gillard to give a better policy. And if it does eventuate that we get Abbott in, that actually puts us in a weaker position to put pressure on Abbott as well. If we've spent the whole period between now and the next election saying, oh my God, if Abbott gets in, it's going to be a disaster, we'll have climate denial for 10 years in Canberra. If it eventuates that Abbott is the next Prime Minister, that is going to put the climate movement in a weak position to campaign against the attacks that will no doubt come from Abbott. Okay, the third point I wanted to make just in my introduction, I hope I'm not going over time, but I think that, you know, there's obviously various opinions. I'm not, you know, you can tell I'm not a fan of the of this carbon price package. You know, I mean, it's probably debatable whether, you know, is it a minor step forward, is it about the same, is it a sort of a slight step backwards? You know, to be honest, I'm not that interested in having a big debate about that. But I think the thing which is most important for the climate movement is that we don't say things that are not true about the carbon price package, and that would be the critique that I would make of you know, a lot of forces in the environment movement that are part of the Say Yes campaign that basically have been supporting the carbon price package, is painting it in a better light than what it really is. And I could put forward several examples, but I won't. I mean, but even I think what seems most self-evident, the claim that at least it is a small step forward. This is the first step. This is at least gets climate action moving. To be honest, I actually don't think that is even true. I think it's actually it is so far removed from what is necessary that even to say that isn't true. And then the final point I want to make is, in terms of we are discussing climate solutions, I want to put, you know, just mention this. This is the Socialist Alliance Climate Charter. This is our plan, and I mean that's obviously only a summary in a document this size, but there's sort of more detailed policies on our website. But I mean, as a summary, I think this is a fairly good sort of comprehensive start. Like, it talks about zero waste, it talks about 100% renewable energy, organic farming, public transport, guaranteed green jobs, and a just transition, public ownership, strong targets, etc. And a 10-point package on the 10-point policy platform on the back. You know, any plan you can discuss, I've really just seen this for the first time. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, you know, a lot of comparable points in it, and I'm sure, you know, I know that, you know, it's not like this is a unique thing that Socialist Alliance has done. And to me, actually, I think in some ways the real discussion is not about the details of what plan you're going to implement, but actually creating the agency that is capable of bringing it about. And that's actually the difficult point. And I think, you know, especially, so this is my final point, but especially in terms of the socialist movement, so speaking to other socialists, it is really unforgivable that we have the kind of divisions in the socialist movement that make the whole movement weaker, make it much harder to sort of put, you know, a more radical plan that has got credibility to the public. And even more broadly than the socialist movement, I would like to, you know, I think, you know, I've said it before, but I think, you know, the whole idea of a red-green alliance as a broader, you know, unity of the you know, the genuinely progressive forces in Australian politics would be a positive thing. And obviously, the socialist movement is very small, but despite that, would actually bring it would bring gains to all the components in such a formation.